Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends. Welcome to another one of our super interesting NTI Conversations. Let me begin by first acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which NTI resides, the Wodi Wodi people of the Darwal Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. May I also pay my respects to the indigenous owners of the land on which you all are located today. I would also like to recognize the triple gem of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Together, they make up the lineage, philosophy, and community of Buddhism that we can embrace to deepen our reflection and pursuits. Today's NTI conversation features a very awesome personality, that is Chade-Meng Tan, a former Google engineer, mindfulness pioneer, and international best-selling author known for creating the Search Inside Yourself program, which blends emotional intelligence with mindfulness practices. After leaving Google, he devoted himself to sharing Buddhist teachings and co-authored the book Buddhism for All, which distills early Buddhist wisdom in an accessible way. Meng's work bridges technology and spirituality, inspiring many to explore meditation, happiness, and inner peace. How Search Inside Yourself can spark a Buddhist awakening. It's going to be a conversation that explores the founder's personal quest inside himself. What did Meng find? How did that journey lead to his heartfelt embrace of Buddhism? So today, let's have an opportunity to check out all these wonderful lessons. Let's welcome the awesome, award-winning engineer, international best-selling author, movie producer, and philanthropist, Meng. The Zoom floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you, 老师. So nice. That's a very generous introduction. Thank you. So I'm going to tell you a story. There's a story in multiple parts. I mean, first part is about how Buddhism saved my life. And the second part is about how I wanted to give back. And the third part is about how I went full Monty. And so this is basically my life story. And some of you might have heard of it. Some of you might have read it in my book. And for those of you who already know, you can just pretend to be interested. or you're checking your cell phone. So I grew up in Singapore, same as Venerable Jiewei. And then I used to be really smart. So when I was a kid, I learned. My mom said I learned to read at 18 months. My IQ was tested at 156, right? And then when I was like 12 years old, I taught myself programming. And then when I was 13, I taught myself assembly language. So I was a smart kid. And then when I was 15, I entered a competition in Singapore and I won my first award in programming. And then when I was 17, I won a national championship, blah, 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 right? So that was where I came from. And you would think a smart kid like me would be very happy. Oh, that's an echo. Hello. Okay. Where was I? Okay, echo. So yeah, but I wasn't happy. I was actually very depressed. And I wasn't just depressed, I was actually suicidal. Which for people who know me now is a huge surprise because I mean I'm the jolly good fellow Google and so on. I'm always happy, but not back then. When then I was always miserable. Right? So I was suicidal. And so and I was also a coward. So what kept me alive? Cowardice. I was too chicken to die. So it's yeah for cowardice. But it started me searching for the answer. Like what could get me out of this misery? So I looked into science, I looked into philosophy, I looked into religion, and nothing worked. Nothing worked. And so I actually looked into Buddhism back then when I was a teenager. So in Singapore, the Buddhism that I had access to at that time, most of it was Mahayana. And Mahayana Buddhism, at that back then, I'm not anymore, but back then in Singapore, there were two extremes. Right? On one extreme, it is very like common folk, very diluted, which is the basically what we call ethics. Be good to everybody. Don't steal, don't lie, don't kill, and don't have any desires. Yeah, that's it. Don't have desires. And it's like I went to every talk I went to. It's basically that. And by the fourth or fifth time, I was like, and that this is useless, right? And then the other extreme, because I read a lot, the other extreme that of Buddhism that I have access to is the other side of the depth spectrum, which is the Prajna Paramita Sutras, right? And form is emptiness. Emptiness is form. There is no suffering. There is no end of suffering. If you recognize that there is no suffering and there is no end of suffering, there's the end of suffering. Like, what? It makes no sense. So that wasn't helping. So, I gave up. This Buddhism thing didn't work. So nothing worked. And then just before I turned 21, I was invited to church. So by the way, I went to Catholic school. There was echo. Okay. So the school is very Catholic because the name of the school is actually called Catholic High School. So where is go to Catholic High School? Yeah, I know which Catholic High School. No, Catholic High School. So it's like it delivers. Like there's no. It leaves nothing to imagination. So I thought I knew everything about Christianity. I went to Catholic High School, right? And then I was invited to a Pentecostal church. And I was there for the first time. And then I realized I had no idea. Wow. So for those of you who don't know what a Pentecostal church is or charismatic service, it is very personal, very involved. It's very emotional, right? People cry, they speak in tongues, and then they collapse on the floor. Sometimes they shiver. And then the pastor was like, my God, he's a pro. I mean, I'm guessing all those pastors, they are like trained by like Toastmasters or something. They're such wonderful, powerful speakers. And I was like, whoa, I love this. This works for me, right? I mean, I knew the theology. Nothing made any sense to me in the theology, but this I can do. I can come here every Sunday. I do that. I relieve my stress from the past 6 days, and then I go back for 6 more days of life. I come back here on Sunday. I can do this. I found it. Yay! Right? So that's why I told myself, I found it. I found my answer. And by coincidence, the same week, a few days later, I met a Tibetan Buddhist nun. Her name was Venerable Sangye Kadro. I mean, still is Venerable Sangye Kadro. And she's American, and but from a Tibetan Buddhist culture, and she was the resident teacher in Singapore in Amitabha Buddhist Center at the time. So I met her, and I was quite rude, unfortunately. And I asked her, I said, look, last week I went to church. I saw for myself how Christianity deals with suffering. What do you have in your Buddhism that addresses suffering? Yeah, I wasn't very nice. And she was very gentle, and she says, all of Buddhism is about addressing suffering. I had the moment, right? And it's like the way I describe it is like somebody opened the floodgates and the water just rushing, that feeling, and just that rushing in. And I was like, I knew I was this close to the answer. I didn't know how I know. I didn't know what the answer was, but I knew I was this close. So that stayed that way. And then the week after that, same nun came to Nanyang Technological University, where I was studying at the time, and she was giving a talk. So I attended. And in the middle of the talk, there was one sentence. She says, the sentence was, it is all about cultivating the mind. And then I got it. I found my answer. And I said to myself, from this moment on, right here, right now, I'm a Buddhist. And I never looked back. It was the best decision I've ever made in my whole life. And in addition to that, whatever that meditation thing is, I'll do whatever it takes to learn that. So I did. So I maybe you can't tell, but I'm actually very old. And so back in those days, meditation was like extremely uncool, right? You had to be a hippie, right, or a monk, or desperate or crazy to want to learn that stuff. So that was me. Right? So yeah, so I think most of those boxes are extremely uncool, right? Desperate, so on, crazy. So I went, and back then, the only places you can learn meditation from was from Buddhist masters. So I went to one of those Buddhist centers. I remember my first real session. I mean, I went to those things before, I said before, but this is my first real meditation session. It was from a Burmese monk, and it was through a translator. So we sat down, and Burmese monk whispered something to translator, and translator said, "Okay, Sayadaw says everybody sit for 1 hour." What? That was the instruction. Okay, so I sat for that hour. Didn't go well. The reason it didn't go well was because I was literally the worst meditator on earth. I mean, a lot of you say that about yourselves, but I'm telling you, I was literally the worst meditator in the world ever. Why? Because I did not know how to breathe. Right? When I was meditating, I could not breathe. Like, how stupid do you have to be to not know how to breathe? Right? This stupid, this guy. So why? Because the instruction was to concentrate on your breathing. That was the instruction. And I couldn't breathe. I was working too hard. So what's the solution? I mean, that's the obvious solution. Obviously, the solution is try even harder. So I tried even harder. You're not surprised. It didn't work. Why are you not surprised? So that didn't work. But I mean, my personality, I'm very like type A personality, and I made a promise to myself, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So I just kept trying, I just kept failing. But even I have limits. So ultimately I said, I give up, this doesn't work. It's not going to work. However, the way I gave up was because I still made a promise to myself. The way I gave up was, okay, today, instead of meditating, I'm just going to sit here and do nothing. That's what I'm going to do. So I sat there and did nothing. And then after a few minutes, I caught myself breathing. And then that was the first time ever that I was able to bring attention to the breath and still able to breathe. So, wow, that was it. That is a solution, right? To catch myself breathing. I mean, it took a lot to practice. Right? Catch myself breathing, that's it. And then in that same sitting, I dropped into this space where, so first, the mind was very calm. And perception was very clear. And then it got calmer and calmer and clearer and clearer. And then I had this experience where joy filled up my entire body and mind. I was joyful for no reason at all, just the entire body and mind. Wow. And that lasted about half an hour. And I emerged from there. I was like, this is it. I found a solution. This is a solution to my misery. And in retrospect, I was right. Okay. So later on, so by the way, I did had that experience, and then it went away. And a few weeks later, it came back, and it went away. It came back, went away. But every time it came back, the time was shorter and shorter. I mean, the time between and coming back became shorter. And then after a while, it became a skill. It's like something I can do on demand. And then just joy just arising. And even with that, it made no sense. Why would just sitting be a joyful experience? No, doesn't make any sense. So I asked one of my teachers, and he gave me the perfect answer. He said, it is because the default state of mind is joy. Right? So when you are in that meditative state, when you're calm and clear, what you're doing is returning to default. That's all. And that default state is joy. Therefore, joy is not something you pursue. Joy is something that's already there. All you have to do is to learn to access it. And that was the solution. And fast forward a few years, my depression went away. Everything went. I completely changed as a person. So once upon a time, my default was misery. Right? If something good happens, I'll be unmiserable for a short period of time, and I return to misery. But now I'm the exact opposite. Now my default state is joy. And if something bad happens, I drop out of joy, and then I return back to joy. Like, this is a huge switch. It's life changing. So that was me. That was Buddhism saved my life. So I was in my 20s. And then when I was 28 or 29, I went to the US to go to graduate school. And then there was a higher.com boom. And then there was a flourishing, industry in the Bay Area, Silicon Valley. So I applied for a job. I needed money. And I got a job in a very small startup called Google. Yeah, nobody, if you haven't heard of Google, you just Google it. So I joined a small startup, and I don't know how to explain it, really explain it. So when I joined, the 100-ish people, and then we never imagined that Google would become like Google. Right? We always thought we were going to be a small company. Larry, the co-founder, the way he saw it, like Google would eventually, at its highest, reach 450 people. That'll be the biggest company you ever get. That's how we were like, yeah, that's how we imagined it. And then one of the investors, Mike Morrich, he's famous as an investor. He came to give us talk. He was also on the board of Yahoo at the time, and he was on the board of Google. He came to give a talk. And then the whole company came, right? Because he was just Mike Morrich. So the whole company means about 120 of us. The whole time company came to his talk. And then he looked around, and then he says, I was just speaking at Google, at Yahoo, 2,000 employees. Someday you will be as big as them. And then we all burst into laughter all at once. So those of you who look at our story and think, Google, they always expected this. No, we are as surprised as you are. So anyway, I was in Google. And then in 2003, I was taking a walk outside the Google campus. So yeah, back then, there was only one campus, and it's a small cluster of small buildings. Right? So I was taking a walk. And then I had another moment that changed my life. I suddenly knew what I wanted to do for the rest of my life, which was to create the conditions for world peace in my lifetime. To create the conditions for world peace in my lifetime. That's what I do for the rest of my life. And I tell this story, sometimes nobody ever asks, what was the thought before that? The thought before that was the story I just told you. I realized that I went from that person to this person. From the person who's miserable, who only stay alive because he's a worthless coward, to the person who's always happy. And I was like, if this guy can do it, everybody can do it. I'm not the lowest common denominator. Everybody can do it. And if everybody does it, it's going to create the conditions for world peace. And I want to do this in my lifetime. So that's what I told myself. And of course, after like a few hours later, that's the stupidest thing ever. And then the thought came back. And then it's like, that's the stupidest thing ever. Who am I? Like this guy, some engineer in some small company, like dude. And then the thought just kept coming back. And after a while, I figured out it's not a random thought. This is it. This is my destiny. Not that I'm going to do it, but this is what I need to try to do. Not that I'm going to succeed, but I have to try. So the only question was how, right? How do you create a condition for world peace? Easy. I figured out that the way to do that is by scaling inner peace, inner joy, and compassion worldwide. The only question was how. And I figured out the way to do that was to align success and profits, right? Because if I were to go around the world talking about peace, joy, compassion, like what happens? Everybody claps. I mean, who can disagree? They all clap, and then they go home, nothing changes. However, if I say, no, whatever this thing is, it is going to help you succeed. It's going to make you more money. And you will also have peace, joy, and compassion. Everybody, hey, sign me up. Why? Because people want to have more profits and they don't mind being happy. So the only question was how. And then I kind of figured it out. I figured the way to do that is I create a curriculum on emotional intelligence using mindfulness as a core, right? Because everybody knew at that time, back then. So back then, mindfulness was not cool. Meditation was not cool, but emotional intelligence was cool. And everybody knows EI is good for success, my success, personal, good for profits. Like if a company has EI, you have more profitable, functioning teams, blah, blah, blah. But nobody knew how to train EI. People assume it's a trait. You're born with it or you're not. But we're meditators. We know how to do this. So all I have to do is just create a curriculum. Done, problem solved. So, one of the many advantages of working at Google is that it's a very open culture. Whatever I just told you, I told it to my coworkers. I was expecting them to say this is the craziest shit I ever heard. What they say instead was, "Wow, you should give this a try. Wow, you should think more." It's like they just kept encouraging me. Right? So I just gathered some of the world's top experts in the room in Google, and we hammered out a curriculum. And so, what do we name it? Because we're in Google, right? So somebody joked and said, "Why do you call it search inside yourself?" Everybody laughed. And my philosophy is, if everybody laughs, that is the right thing to do. Let's do that. So that became the name. So we ran the class. Oh, shall I tell you another part? Okay. Do you mind if I just keep telling sub stories? And I hope you don't mind. Even if I take up too much time, just like Venerable Jerry can slap me later. Except she's in Australia and America, so it's harder for. Anyway, so the timing was right. It was fascinating. The Google culture was very conducive to these things happening because they allow me to just run wild and invite the world's top experts. Like which company does that? Right? And then I did that, and then I just went to my bosses and said, "Look what I've done! Right? Look what we created!" Right? And they were like, "This is cool!" Right? Instead of like, "You're fired." So we did that, and then the timing was so perfect. I tell you a story about what that means. So that was in 2007, and I was planning to take a sabbatical of 6 months because by then I've been in Google for a while, and I told a friend, my friend, I won't name him. I just call him Raj for this story. That's his name, Raj. Let's say he's an Indian. So I told Raj, this is I'm having in mind. So if I go on sabbatical, this whole search inside yourself thing will be delayed by 6 months. But I want to go on my sabbatical. So I told him that, and then we just left it at that. And then he went back to India for intense meditation retreat for 2 months. He came back to the US. He called me and said, "Meng, we need to talk." So I invited him for lunch, and he was like, "That search inside yourself thing, do it now. Don't take a sabbatical. Do it now." I said, "Why?" He said he saw a vision in his meditation that you have to do it now. And he won't tell me what the vision is. I said, "How bad?" He was like, "Really bad." I said, "Okay, I'll do it now." Turns out he was right. So I canceled my sabbatical. I did it. Turns out Raj was right, because if I had delayed for 6 months, the financial crisis happened. Subprime happened. And we will never have been funded. So because I started during a time of plenty, right? And Google was like, "Oh, you want to try this experimental EI created by an engineer?" Sure. Oh, wait, a male engineer. Oh, Chinese. Sure. I have three hits against me. I'm male, I'm Chinese, I'm an engineer. Like doing emotional intelligence. Like who would fund that? But Google it. so, so they did that. And then we ran it, and then it became the most popular class in Google. Like the our waiting list was like months, many months, and then the financial crisis hit, and then what happened was so a lot of programs were cut. So again, if I didn't study before, I would never have started. It would never have been funded. But we have been funded already. We got grandfathered in. However, my boss was very clear. We're cutting funding by half. So the way we ran Search Insight back then was I hired two external teachers who are both highly qualified. So one of them was, for example, Norman Fisher, right? He was a Zen master. He was the abbot of the San Francisco Zen Center, extremely qualified, right? We have people like that. So they co-teach, which is why the program was so popular. It was like best teachers in the world kind of thing. So now budget got cut in half, and my boss at the time, Peter, he told me, I was like, we can't run this, right? And he was like, it's very easy. You teach it. He pointed to me. You teach it. So you still have two instructors. One of them is already on our payroll. Problem solved. I was like, I can't teach this. I'm not qualified to teach anything, right? Mindfulness, I can't do this. I'm just an engineer, right? And then so we had this. It went on for a while, right? 2 or 3 meetings. Every time he comes frustrated, and I think the third or fourth meeting, he laid out on the table. He said very clear. I mean, there are only two options: either you teach, or the program goes away. This is it. Choose one. So I was forced to learn to teach a program, and then it turns out I didn't suck as much as I thought I would. So I became a teacher. And then before I knew it, like people regarded me as a mindfulness teacher, and then even my own like Dharma teacher started calling me a Dharma teacher. I said, I'm not a Dharma teacher. I'm an engineer. Right? But yeah, they're like, no, you're a Dharma teacher now. Okay. So so that happened, and then it became popular. I wrote a book about it. Oh, this blue book over here, and then it became a New York Times bestseller, and it became a thing. So and then we created an external organization to teach it outside of Google. And I name it the Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute, SIYLI, pronounced as silly. Again, if you're not laughing, it's not a right name. So I became the silly boss. Yeah. So we bought out, yeah. And then what happened was, lo and behold, not too long after that, mindfulness became mainstreamed. I wouldn't say I would say I have some contribution, but it's just happened. It was mainstreamed. And I received a congratulation note from somebody I admired, one of the Dharma teachers, and he put it so nicely. He wrote to me, and he says, in just very few words, he says, a lifetime's work done in 10 years. So, oh, thank you. I'll take credit for that. Such a nice thing to say. So after mindfulness was mainstream, so those are the first two parts of it. First, part one was Buddhism saved my life. Part two was mindfulness from my time I entered Google to the time it was mainstream. Oh, by the way, how do I know it was mainstream? There were two markers. The first marker was it was on the front page cover of Time magazine, and it was a blonde woman, not an Asian monk, but blonde woman. So now that's how I know it's mainstream. The second indicator was there was a show, Kermit the Frog. Kermit the Frog had a friend in California, and they was like doing yoga. And everybody laughed. Right? So everybody got the joke. It's like yoga meditation is all mainstream. Yeah, even Kermit the Frog is doing it. So once it's mainstream, so it goes on to part three, which is comes directly addressing directly the theme of what the title of today's talk, which is that that my personality is I'm more a founder. I prefer to be a founder more than a CEO, which means that if I get a choice to run a big company that's already successful versus like starting small and doing something nobody's done before, I'd rather do the second, right? So my thinking was mindfulness was already mainstream. They don't need me anymore. They, as in this industry, this world doesn't need me anymore. Other people can do their job. I want to do the next thing, which is even more difficult. And what's more difficult is to go deeper, right? So for example, to bring in more dharma into the mindfulness, right? To go so deep into meditation that you go to the jhanas and so on, depth. And so I thought about it. If I want to go into depth, there's a key question I need to ask. And the key question is this: can I do depth without using the words Buddha or Buddhism or any derivative or Buddhist, whatever, derivative of Buddha? That's a real question. It was a serious question. And then I thought about it, and I realized there's an analogy to the question. The analogy is, can I teach or can I even talk about relativity and quantum physics without using the word Einstein, Einsteinian, or any derivative of the word Einstein? Can it be done? Answer is yes, it can be done. However, it's not worth doing, right? Because in order to do that, you have to twist yourself so tightly, right? Somebody asked, this relativity, who came up with quantum physics? You can't use the word Einstein. It is some guy in Switzerland, in the Swiss patent office. But more importantly, the equations, like you keep having to run away. And I was like, let's not do that. I decided, therefore, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to not use the word Buddhist, Buddhism, whatever. And once I decided that, floodgates were open, and I kind of like went crazy, and I kind of went full Monty. I went full Monty my Buddhism, which is why the title of my next book was like Buddhism for All, right? It's a very audacious, like in your face, like full Monty kind of title. So that's where I am, right? I decided that my next step is to just go the full blown. I call myself a Buddhist. I mean, I'm honest. Call myself a Buddhist. Go the full blown Buddhism. Tell people whatever I'm doing, this is Buddhism. And so that's where I am. And when the title of this, right, leading to a Buddhist awakening, the way I see it, it is not that we will become Buddhist. It is that the teachings of Buddha Dharma, right, is commonly known, commonly practiced. And there's something really important I need to say. Like, this is really, really important. When I say Buddhism for all, when I say promoting Buddhism for all, it is not pitting one religion against another. It is not that this religion wins, that one loses. No, it's the exact opposite. It is, the way I say it is like everybody wins. There is no loser in this game, right? Why? Because it raises the water for all the boats. Right? If we all, how should I say it? So the key part, when I say Buddhism, it's a shorthand for the word Buddha Dharma, and the key word is Dharma. Buddha Dharma is Dharma as explained by the Buddha. And what is Dharma? The Chinese character or Chinese translation of Dharma is Fa, which means the law, which is actually a very good translation, because Dharma means natural law, right? The natural laws of cause and effect. So what is a natural law? For example, the laws of physics, right? When you apply 1 Newton of force to a 1 kilogram object, you accelerate by 10 meter square, 10 meter square, or whatever. That is the law of physics. Whatever your beliefs, whatever religion, doesn't matter. That doesn't change. That is what it meant by natural law, universal law. And in Dharma, in Buddhism, Dharma is specific to one thing or two things, depending on how you count. It's specific to understanding the nature of suffering and the cessation or the ending of suffering. And the Buddha made it very clear. Right? One time the Buddha was in the forest with a bunch of monks, and he picked up a bunch of leaves, a handful of leaves, and he asked the monks, which is more, all the leaves on all those trees or this handful of leaves? And the monk says, that is more, this is less. And Buddha said, that represents what I know. This represents what I teach. What I teach is a tiny subset. And what is this? What is in this handful of beliefs? It is the nature of suffering and cessation from suffering. That is all. So what is Buddhism? Is it a philosophy? Is it a religion? Whatever. If you strip down to the core, it's not a philosophy, it's not a religion, it's not even a way of life. It is just that. Understanding universal law concerning suffering and ending of suffering, and the practices to end suffering. And these practices are all, at least those taught by the Buddha, they're all secular. Right? For example, right, bring attention to the breath, the body. Right? I mean, how is that even religious? Like even athletes do that all the time. If you have an athlete, you have to bring attention to the breath and your body all the time, no matter how religious you are. And that's how we know it's secular. Right? So this is what I meant. This practice. So another way I see it, right, is like in the old days, people who even the educated, they don't learn physics, they don't learn science. Right? Even like if you look in China, they were highly educated, very scholarly society, Tang Dynasty, even up to Song Dynasty. Nobody learned science. They just learn poetry, they learn calligraphy, they learn writing, they learn literature, and so on. Nobody learns science. I mean, because science hasn't been invented yet, right? But today, right, every single one of us with a secondary education knows some science. We all at least know the Newton's laws. Right? So in a way, Newton's laws, they don't belong to Newton, even though they call Newton's laws. Newton doesn't own them. Right? In the same way, the Buddha doesn't own Dharma, even though they're called Buddha Dharma. Right? And so, yeah, so the way I see it is that from that world, right, it's like from nobody learning science to everybody learning science, we are create a world where nobody knows Dharma, nobody knows nature of suffering and end of suffering, and then to a world where everybody learns it. So yeah, so that's what I'm hoping. There's one other thing, I don't remember what it is. Yes, note to self. Take down notes. What you want to say? I didn't even take down note on that one.
It will come back to you, Meng.
I hope so. Yeah. So, now I remember what the point is. I think this is important enough that I need to say it out loud, which is that Dharma is not exclusive to Buddhism. Why? Because Dharma is natural law, it's understanding nature of suffering and end of suffering. Therefore, wherever there is that understanding and there's that practice, there is Dharma. So even, I mean, in every religion, when there are good practitioners, when there are people who are loving, who are compassionate, there is Dharma. So it's not a Buddhist thing. So again, it's not pitting Buddhism. It's not like trying to pit religions against each other. It is finding what is common among all of us, right? The inner peace, inner joy, the compassion, the love. And then because Buddhism, we are more systematic, right? Because we figured out how to make it a system which is secular. Right? So because of that, we have a contribution to make, to lift all boats. And so that's what I hope, that's what I mean by leading to a Buddhist awakening for the world. It is in a sense a secular thing. It's in a sense trans-religious. People with religion or without religion, they can all benefit from this. So this is my work for the, I hope for the rest of my life. Yeah, and yeah, thank you for listening.
Thank you. Wow, thank you so much, Meng, for sharing your aspirations. I can see the bodhicitta in you for all beings. For all beings. I mean, every one of your 3 turning points, from misery to happiness, or whether it's creating conditions for world peace is for all, and then Dharma for all. So thank you so much. I'd like now to invite questions from the floor. Darren, you're the first to raise your hand. Yay!
I saw you put that in the chat, so I had my cursor hovering over the button, so I got in before everyone else.
Good NTI training.
Good, exactly. I learned from the best, Venerable. So thank you. Ming, thank you so much. I'm so glad that I was able to take my lunch hour to join this as a fellow American who actually went to high school in Silicon Valley and actually had to escape America because of violence. I guess my question to you is how do I and how do we join your cause and your vision? Because again, it's that Dharma and that connection is so important and that networking. I guess that's my main question is how do we join your vision?
So the real answer is I don't know yet. But there are bits and pieces that I might know, and I can share those. I mean, they're like the way I see it. There are two directions, right? So there's inner peace leading to inner joy, leading to compassion. So what does that mean? There is like so you start with like calming your mind, and because of that, joy arises. Joy fills out the body, and because of joy filling out the body, you walk into the world. What happens if you're joyful? Like you want to be nice to everybody. And eventually being nice is not good enough. You want to help people. So you start doing compassionate action. So there's this chain, causation chain. There's also the reverse causation chain, which is that if you are not a happy person, you're not a nice person, but you practice compassion, you do compassionate actions. So you start with compassion. That will lead to inner joy because now you're happy. And because of inner joy, you lead to inner peace. So it goes back and forth. And so the things I'm doing, part of it is in one direction, part of it is the other. So the thing that is in the direction of starting with compassion, there's something called 1 billion acts of peace. So you go to billionacts.org. It's part of PGEM Foundation. PGEM is an organization where 14 Nobel Peace Laureates work together. Some of them have passed away, unfortunately, so we don't have 14 anymore. But so we came together to try to inspire young people around the world. Right? So Billion X, yeah, thank you. So we are hoping, like through everybody taking action, compassionate action, acts of peace, you will first of all create this causality that lead to people being joyful and at peace. Also, more importantly, we are hoping by like if we have 1 billion acts of peace, you will trigger a phase shift. Right. So right now, the default is we don't do anything, and then as an exception, we take action for peace. We want to create a world where it's the reverse, right? By default, we all take action for peace, and then as exception, we don't. So we are hoping 1 billion is the trigger point. So we've been working on that. Our last count is I think 200 million or something. So yeah, and Father Tutu was very nice when he was alive. He nominated us for the Nobel Peace Prize, and then 7 other Nobel laureates joined him. So we received 8 nominations. So first thing I can encourage you to do, yes, is to get involved. Then see what you can do with PGEM. Maybe log your acts of peace, lead something. The people there are very nice. Contact them. If you need a contact, you can ask me. So that's one. And if you spare money, the organization PGEM itself, they are a charity. I mean, they're nonprofit. I donate to it, and if you feel called to, feel free to do that as well. So that's one. The other direction is Buddhism.net. That's my other work. That's the work that takes up right now the bulk of my time. And it is a accumulation of basically what I told you. But it is the starting with meditation, mindfulness, self-development, and then adding on top of it what the Buddha taught, Buddha Dharma, right? The 4 Noble Truths, the Eightfold Path, the 4 jhanas, the 7 factors of enlightenment, blah, 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 blah. And so right now, I'll be honest with you, I feel like a failure, even more than usual, because like Buddhism.net is still a very small setup, right? We have, I don't know, our YouTube channel has 2,000 people or whatever. I mean, when I was growing up with Google, In Google, we measure everything in units of 1 million. So by that measure, everything now I'm doing now rounds down to 0. So yeah, I want to. I mean, eventually, so Buddhism now that we're trans-sectarian, but because we focus on early Buddhism, so we are friends with everybody. That's why we have masters from all the traditions coming to work with us, talk to us, hoping eventually we become the nexus, we become the UN of Buddhism, right? And so we can spread this goodness, bring everybody together. Right now it's not doing that. The book sale, I'm embarrassed to admit as an author, this book is not selling well. I said, I don't know why don't people want to learn about Buddhism, right? Book is not selling well. Only 2,000 people on YouTube and so on. So I hope we can have higher reach, do more, but I don't know what it is. But if there's something you can do to help, I would very much appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. We have a question from Belinda.
Hi, Belinda.
Hello. Thank you so much for such a beautiful presentation. And I really appreciated you sharing your stories. And one of the things you said earlier in your talk today was about your intellectual giftedness, that was apparent kind of as a child. And I'm a clinical psychologist, and I actually have a special interest in giftedness. And I do specialize in, helping and supporting neurodivergent minds who might also be experiencing suicidal thoughts and depression.
Thank you.
And I wondered if you had any advice for gifted children and teens, as well as their parents and teachers. How can we support well-being in these complex minds?
Oh, thank you. That's a great question. So I will start with a joke, which is that it's actually true. When you were talking, when you talk about you specialize in giftedness, the word in my mind was, oh, you mean the curse of high intelligence. I meant it as a joke, but it's actually true. I mean, high IQ is actually a curse, and the biggest part of the curse is you don't belong. You don't belong anywhere. And part of it, I don't know. I think high IQ is correlated with some version of autism. Yeah. So my suspicion is that everybody in Google is somewhere on the spectrum, including myself. Maybe I don't know why, but there's some combination of factors, and I don't know what they are. But that's the first thing we feel. We always feel alone. Even now, I mean, I'll be honest with you. Even today. So somebody asked me, what's the best thing or worst thing about being Meng, right? I say the best thing about being Meng is I'm never lonely because I'm always surrounded by good people, like even now. The worst thing about being Meng is I'm always lonely because I never belong anywhere. And so as an adult, I know how to deal with that. And the chief way I deal with that is by humor. I mean, I joke about it. I joke about the curse of high IQ. People laugh. And also, I'm my Dharma practice. But when you're very young, it's very hard to have that. It's very hard to have that. It's very hard because the power of the humor comes from a certain level of self-confidence. And my self-confidence come from a Dharma practice. And when you're that young, it's very hard to have a proper Dharma practice. So the first thing is to know that I'm only half joking, right? That high intelligence is a curse at a young age. It remains a curse for the rest of your life, but especially at a young age. The second part is knowing that the curse shows up mostly as not belonging anywhere. And so once you know that, right, then you kind of have a way, you kind of have a way in, and the way in is understanding, is warmth and love, and knowing that when they ask stupid, like weird questions. I mean, I give you an example of a weird question. Kid asked the father, "What is that?" Father said, "That is a goat," and the kid asked, "Why?" It sounds like a joke, but high IQ kids ask like that a lot. I told that joke to my father, and he's a bunch of other people his age, old people, right? They all laughed, and then after they finished laughing, one of the old men said, "Wow, that kid slapped him." And I recognized that because when I was growing up, that was the default response. Like if you ask a stupid question like that, slap. What do you mean why? It's a goat, it's a goat. Duh. so yeah, I mean, don't do that. And have an understanding, right? As I, yeah, they need treat high IQ kids as special need kids because they do have special emotional needs because they don't belong, and they're also very sensitive. I don't know whether it's true universally, but if you could tell me, but I find myself to have very high sensitivity to both physical and emotional pain. Right? And I suspect it is part of the package. Yeah. So that understanding and caring. That's my suggestion.
Thank you so much for that
Thank you.
sharing. It's going to be very helpful for many of us. Yeah, thank you. Over to Xiaoyang.
Hello, thank you for sharing your story, Meng. I spent my undergrad years in Singapore, so I can relate to the search that you went through.
Yep.
But before I ask my question, I want to offer something. So you mentioned the Chinese word "fa" for Dharma. So apart from law that you have mentioned, as you have already pointed out in various ways in your talk, it is also the meaning of method or way. So in the Dharma, you have both the law and you also have the way to learn it and to read.
Yes.
So my question is, I mean that was the search that you went through and you found the right path. But for a young person today in this age, when they want to find the right way, I mean to the Dharma, if I want to be more specific, how do they do so if they in this age of information deluge?
Yes, I have an answer. I have a default answer, and I also tell you my frustration. I think my answer is fairly obvious. What the answer is? The answer is community. Right, where I think the Buddha was even clear, very clear. The Buddha was listing out the what leads people to Dharma. Right, and in multiple suttas, he says the thing that leads people to Dharma is good friends. It's all about friendship. Right? And again, there's also the famous sutta, I think most of you heard of, that the Ananda figured it out. Ananda was very smart. I mean, he wasn't enlightened, but he was like, oh, I figured it out. Yeah, and Bhante, I figured out, Buddha also didn't figure it out. Bhante, I figured out that community is so important that half of the holy life is community. It's that important, right? And the Buddha said, no, you're wrong. It's not half. It's all, the whole of the holy life is community, is good friends, admirable friends. So how do young people get to Dharma? It is through friends who can lead them to Dharma. As far as I know, there's no other reliable way I know of. I mean, I was lucky. I was just searching and I didn't die. But I also recognize it's just pure good luck. Right? I recognize that most people, the reliable way to get help is through to the right friends. So the next question is, how do we get the right friends to people? And that is my biggest frustration right now. Because my Christian brothers and sisters, right, there's a lot to admire about our Christian brothers and sisters. And one of many things to admire about what they do is they're so good at community. Right? I mean, that you go to a church, right? They have a hierarchy. They have pastors, they have the elders, and then they have a pipeline of young people who come in and then they become cell leaders and so on and so forth. Right? There's a proper progression, and because of that, they are able to reach out to universities. Right? When I was in NTU, there were 3 Christian fellowships. There's kind of one Buddhist fellowship, kind of. It exists, but it didn't do much. So then the question becomes how. And so that's something that my team has been trying to work on. How do we reach universities? How do we create community? I don't have the answer yet, but that is my direction.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Meng.
Okay.
Alex, did you have a question?
Yeah, I've got a question. Hello, Venerable. It's great to see you. Great to see the classroom at NTI.
Yes,
wonderful.
please come and see us when you next
Yes.
come home to meet Mom.
Thank you. Ming, thanks so much for the presentation. It's wonderful. I took the Search Inside Yourself class when I first joined Google. First year I was in Google, 2013. I'm still at Google here, 12 years later. So
nice.
it was a great class. I really enjoyed it. My question is that in Australia, I'm originally from Australia. It's somewhat different to America. I would say most people in Australia have no religion or are atheists. How can we reach out to those people?
So the way I tried to do it was through secular mindfulness. And the theory I had in mind is that in the old days, when we were young, people learn Dharma, and then some of them picked up meditation. And I think things if they're flipped now. I think that people now will learn meditation, and some of them will learn Dharma. So the solution to that question, in my opinion, I could be wrong, is to make meditation as widely available as possible. Make it as available as exercise, right? Anybody can exercise. If anybody can go to a gym, they're all around. Anybody can find a friend to go to a gym, and so on and so forth. Anybody can pick up a book and learn how to do weights. So make it as popular. And then the more then it's a funnel, right? Because the bigger that part of funnel is, the bigger also the power funnel of people wanting to learn Dharma.
Great thought. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Meng. I think what you have given me is this little thought in my head. Search, not to search. We have to first want to initiate that search. It doesn't happen on its own. And in your case, you first stepped out and asked the questions, and the universe answers. So I guess it's the same with all of us. We all have lots of questions. We ask those questions, and sometimes we have to search inside for the answers and to have faith that the answers will come, that the universe will answer. But also joining the right communities is important. So if you don't mind, my friends, let me offer you a few possible next steps for anybody who may be interested in joining our community here at Nantian. So the next is the Happiness and Modernity NTI Conversation that will be coming up shortly for our world today. Dr. Nadine Levy, who is our head of program for health and social well-being, will be having a conversation with the University of Wollongong's Associate Professor, Jordan Mackenzie, drawing on contemporary Buddhist and sociological perspectives to better understand the good life. Happiness and modernity, how do they work together? So Joseph will be putting down he has already put down the link if you are interested. And here in Nantian Institute, we have a little Humanistic Buddhism Center. In this research center, we are very pleased to be working together with Deakin University, Western Sydney University, Charles Darwin University to run Australia's first Buddhism in Australia survey. So if you have not had an opportunity to fill in this survey, please do so. And if you have already, please feel free to spread the word widely. It is also available in several other languages. Speaking of community, we have a Sunday check-in community that runs every Sunday. So we welcome you to join us Every Sunday this month, November, we're talking about mindful consumption, a very unique but also timely topic for all of us. So please feel free to join. Another community is the metaverses, the communities of kindness. Meng has a shirt on kindness. Kindness is important to all of us. Yes. Thank you, Meng. Yes, so kindness. In this world of kindness, we've just launched on World Kindness Day, our metaverses. Please feel free to jump on and enjoy some of our podcasts as well as resources we have compiled for you. And finally, the Buddhism.net community will be playing reverse roles in January, from January to March. I will be put under the chopping board while Meng will ask me very tough questions. But together we will look at what it means to be a bodhisattva by examining the Buddhist Sutra of the 8 realizations of great beings. I welcome you to join us. If you are interested, it's a series called Vibe with Venerables, a great initiative that Meng has started that's ecumenical, just like us here in NTI Institute. We aim to go across traditions and bring in the best to answer the difficult questions that we have today. So my friends, thank you so very much for your time with us today. And thank you to Meng for sharing, to Angela and Joseph for arranging the logistics, and to every one of you online for your participation. We look forward to seeing you again sometime soon. In the meantime, everybody, keep well, be mindful, and bring lots of joy and happiness to the world. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm going to stop recording.
Okay. Thank you. Well, you just waste another perfectly good hour with me.